Good afternoon, folks, and thank you so much for coming along to our episode 2 of Careers and Coffee. On today's show, I'm going to be talking to Jill Barton, who has had a fantastic career, and we're going to talk about some of the roles that she's done previously, what she's up to at the moment. She's an amazing advocate supporting young people, making sure they have the skills to be prepared and inspired about the world of work. So we're going to bring Jill in and talk a little bit more about her career. Jill,
Hi.
thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm absolutely fine, thanks, Jordan, and you're looking well too.
Well, I'm trying my best. So, how has lockdown been for you at the moment? How's it been going?
Lockdown has not been too bad, although I have to say it's the first time in my life when I've had a completely white diary. There is just nothing in it, except every day at 5:30 I sing with Gareth Malone, which is one thing that really keeps me going.
Is that the choir chap, isn't it?
Yes, it's the Great British Home Choir, which is
Oh,
just
okay.
amazing. And it keeps me up with my singing, and he does lots of warm-ups. And of course, it's VE Day tomorrow, so we're singing songs for that. And actually, we're having, where I live, a virtual, a socially distanced afternoon tea.
That sounds
So
very classy. I like the sound of that.
So this morning, I thought you would. So this morning I've made flapjacks, and the idea is that we put all our cakes on a table. People run or walk and get a cake and have a cuppa or a prosecco or whatever you would like.
I was going to say, now you're talking my language. So I'm going to jump straight into it. I want to start to learn a little bit more about yourself, your career, some of the skills you think young people need. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your previous roles and what you're currently getting up to at the moment?
Okay, Jordan. Well, going back in time, I actually started off as a PA for a chief executive. And then I got really interested in the work that we were doing at the Council for Young People. And I then developed my role in the community development area, working on a young people strategy. And at that time, there wasn't much done with young people, but it was at the time when then funding did become available for lots of different and new things for young people to get involved in. And I absolutely loved it. And one of the things we did at the council where I worked was set up a youth club, and we actually raised money for them to have it was almost like one of these I suppose big warehouse places that was built. And yeah, that was just amazing. I don't know what's happened to it now. I think the parish council actually own it now, but that was one of the good things that came out of my work there. And then I left the council and set up with a guy actually I used to employ at the council called Paul Press. I'm sure he won't mind me saying this, but we set up Who Asks Us, which was a project to inspire young people that they could actually do anything they wanted to in their lives, provided they worked hard and had the right skills. And that ended up being such a positive project that we did about 13 or 14 across 4 to 5 years. And then, of course, the funding ran out, so we had to stop. But one of the highlights for me of my career, really, I can say this, was receiving an award from Suffolk County Council for innovation in education and skills. And that was in 2014. And it was just so many people supported our application. And it was a really proud moment because I really felt that what we'd done over those years had made a difference to so many young people's lives.
That sounds fantastic. And I also wanted to talk a little bit about something we both do have in common, aside from sort of loving holidays and wine, is that we are both high school governors. So would you be able to tell us a little bit about what a school governor does and some of the skills that you need when you are being one of the school governors?
Yes, I mean, I became a school governor because it seemed to make sense. I was doing so much work. Am I allowed to say the school I'm working with?
Yeah, by all means.
Okay, I've always worked quite closely with Stoke High School as it was then, and now Ormiston Stoke Academy. And I started off there working as a mentor, and I've been mentoring young people there for well over 12 years. And then we took the Who Asked Us project to Stoke, and I've continued to work with them on a volunteer basis, both mentoring and, of course, Jordan, as you know, being their careers enterprise advisor. So it seemed to make sense that having such a lot in common with the school and working with them that I became a governor. And it's not an easy job. You have to have patience. You have to really care. And I think one of the hardest things about being a governor is when you have to go and be a member of an exclusion panel, which means that you have to meet the student and the parent who is possibly going to be excluded from the school. And we have an awful responsibility, I suppose, to say either yes or no. And it's very hard to actually do that.
Communication is quite a key skill for that then, in which case.
Yes, you need listening skills, particularly when the student and the parent are talking. You need to have really done your homework. So when you have an exclusion panel, there's so many papers to read, and in order that you get it into your mind before the interview takes place, you really have to reread it and get it into your mind that you're sure that the decision you make is the right one.
Definitely. And I feel your pain on that one as well, being a governor myself. So also, whilst we're talking about school, what was your pathway after you left school? Did you have a clear idea exactly what you wanted to go in and do, or was it a bit sort of here, there and everywhere? What was your pathway after school?
That's quite interesting, Jordan, because I set off at quite a young age wanting to work with young people and probably going to work in a children's home. But my father said, "Oh, no, you don't want to do that. You want to go into an office." So that's what I did. I did a shorthand typing clerical course and ended up working in an office. However, that was not a bad thing because the skills I learned through office work of communication, of actually learning skills on the PC, and also socially, it's really important. So it stood me in good stead. But what I always find amazing is that I've come back to square one. So what I wanted to do when I was growing up was always work with children and young people. And then I had all the time out when I wasn't doing that, and then sort of came back to it at a later stage in my life. So I just think it was probably meant to be.
So you also referenced there that you've worked in offices, worked at the council, and obviously supporting students and young people. What do you think are some of the key skills that you think young people and students need when they're in the workplace?
I would say the most important thing is good communication. Definitely. Being socially able to communicate is so vital for many careers. I would also look for young people who can work in lots of different situations, like they need to be able to work as part of a team and also independently. And I think one of the main things is they need to have a sense of humour. I'm sure you'd agree, Jordan.
Yeah, gets you through the days.
I also think that a young person who has done their homework before they go to an interview, so if they were coming to me for an interview, and I'd expect them to know all about what my company does, what it's like to work there, what the company stood for, what their finances were, so that they weren't going in cold and they'd know almost as much about the company as the person interviewing them. I think in this world, it's so vital to have that information.
Definitely. And I also now want to talk a little bit more about social mobility, because that's the project that you're involved with in Ipswich, and there's lots of work going on across the UK around social mobility as well. But what does it mean to you? And sort of a second question on that is, what do you think are some of the issues that are holding back young people from really fulfilling some of their ambitions that they want to go off and do in their careers? So what does social mobility mean to you, to start with?
I think social mobility is vital. I mean, particularly the school I work with at Stoke is in a very deprived area. It has a big percentage of young people from both Portugal and Romania. And if we didn't have the social mobility funding, those young people wouldn't have the opportunities that perhaps many young people have across the country. I think it levels up opportunity, and it gives people who probably wouldn't ever think of having a career, a dream of a career. It gives them the opportunity to actually take part in activities which are obviously now well funded. And what was your what was the second part of the question, Jordan? Sorry.
It's already answered, but it was around, what do you think are some of the issues, some of the barriers that really do hold back some of the students, in particular, pupils at the school that you're a governor at?
Confidence, having the belief in themselves. They don't think that the things that they do within school, such as being good at sport or taking part in a drama production, they don't think that has anything to do with work. They think that's just school. They don't see the rounded person. They see a timid, very unconfident person looking in the mirror who is really not capable of doing any of those things. So I think our role, Jordan, is to actually say, come on, we can help you with this. There is a dream out there, and if you work hard, then it is possible to achieve anything.
No, I think you're absolutely spot on. I think a lot of it as well is around, do they have a relatable role model in their life that they can aspire to be like that? And sometimes that might not be in your immediate social group and within your family and friends, but I think that's where it's so important that we have more employers and people going into schools who can provide to be that role model, and that you can have a really meaningful encounter with that person. So you can think, actually, they're like me, they speak like me, they look like me. That's something that, they've got a job I want to go and do that. And I think it gives you a little bit more confidence to then be able to do that in the future and sort of raise the bar a little bit. So no, I think you're definitely right on that one. So the last time I think I probably saw you was when we were doing mentoring with the Radwell Trust, which is a group or a trust of pupil referral units based in Ipswich. Can you tell me a little bit more about mentoring and why it's so important to you?
I think, as you've just said, Jordan, everybody needs a role model. So the way I see it is, if I can give somebody that confidence or inspire that young person, because I think particularly with the Radwell Trust, it was hard. And you might think we could come out of there and think, oh my goodness, did we really do anything today? Did they listen to us? Did they take anything away? And I think they do. You wouldn't see it at the time, because I think if we go back to the previous question, they would be too shy or it wouldn't be cool to actually admit that what we were saying was right. But actually, I think afterwards they would go away and think about it. I think young people, especially if they're in their little groups, they don't want to admit, these kind of things that, oh yes, we have a dream and we're going to do that. It's not cool, is it? But underneath that, I think that they might see, well, I'd like to think they did see us as role models, and that we actually took time out of our lives to go and be with them for that hour in the morning, even though it may seem to us that nothing was happening. I hope and believe that something was. And I think mentoring is just so important. I've seen some very sad cases of young people who are, and mentally sort of struggling. And particularly I worry now in the lockdown that we're in, that mentoring is going to go off the scale when we go back into schools, because there'll be so many young people who have not been able to make contact with their friends, have not been able to talk things over with their friends. I know they have social media, but it's not the same as having a hug from one of your friends. So I do think we'll have a big role to play when everything opens up again.
And I think just also on that as well, why do you then think it's so important to volunteer? And not necessarily just as maybe being an enterprise advisor or governor. Why do you think it's important that more people do volunteer?
I think particularly now at this unprecedented time, it's a way of giving something back. And it's also good for knowing that you've made that difference in someone's life. I mean, so many people are doing so much at the moment, aren't they? Whether it's just picking up a telephone. I mean, I send out a thought for the day to all my WhatsApp friends every morning, and I've had some lovely comments back. And it only has to be a small thing to make a difference to someone's lives, whether it be by shopping or just picking up the phone. I mean, as I said, I've been a volunteer mentor at Stoke Academy for over 12 years. And some of the cases I see are very sad, but then when you see young people, you see them change and really sort of get hold of life again after you've probably talked to them for about 6 or 7 weeks. That makes such a difference. It makes a difference to me, and I hope it makes a difference to them.
No, I think that's absolutely brilliant. And as I said, I want to try and make these as relatable as possible. So when you've been at work, has there ever been sort of any embarrassing moments when you've been at work? Oh God, I know I've had my fair share, but I thought I'd put you on the spotlight.
I'm just trying to think actually whether there has been. Oh, gosh, I mean, there's been embarrassing moments probably in which I've been involved in where emails have been sent inadvertently to the wrong person. But you put me on the spot. When we finish this, Jordan, I shall think of things.
Well, you can add them in the comments. I think what I mean, I can share. So talking about the email thing, I had that exact thing recently where I have to go to X amount of these meetings, and I jokingly sent a comment saying, oh, "Aren't you glad we don't have to go to these meetings anymore?" Of which then they'd replied all to my original question in there, but they'd CC'd in the people who host those meetings. So that was a little bit embarrassing. And yes. Josie, who's in the background of this call doing the fancy technical wizardry, she'd only just joined us, and all of our work phones are exactly the same. Mine was on my desk, hers was next to it. So I think she's probably been in the job for 4-6 weeks, something like that. And anyway, she'd wandered off, and I'd been in meetings, and I picked up a phone, assuming it was mine, tried all the passcode, didn't work. Oh, the phone's broke. Took it to IT, and they said, "Oh, we're going to have to wipe the phone for you, and then it will work." So I said, "Yeah, wipe it. I know it's frustrating, but sort of, And that, they've wiped it. I then come back up to my office. Then I look and see the phone on my desk, and I think, "Oh, it's I've picked up the wrong phone," and then I had to then grovel to say what I'd done. So I think it's trying to make sure that stuff does happen at work that can be quite embarrassing and it can be quite frustrating. A lot of it is owning up to it.
I also think that social media is great, but once you press that button,
yes. And I think on social media, it's also about what you're putting on there. Especially as young people, where you're on Twitter, you're on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and everything else. It's being quite conscious about what you are then putting online, because you could put it online 10 years ago and it could still come back to haunt you.
Yeah, I think that is a thing to tell young people as well, that they shouldn't be putting it out to the world. They should have all their privacy settings on, which I always do. I think social media is a brilliant thing, but it's also got its downfalls as well, as we know.
No, definitely. Oh, that's quite cool, isn't it? Right. Do you think volunteering has helped you further your career? If so, why? So that's a question from someone. I've not checked who it is. Yeah. So, do you think volunteering has helped you further your career, Joel?
I think it definitely, because volunteering gives the other person so much, but not only that, it gives you so much. And this is why I think it's so vital for young people to do some volunteering. If they find that, you know, the career or the job is evading them, or if they've got time off from college, then volunteer, because it goes on your CV, and that actually does help to further your career. I mean, not only do I volunteer at the school, but I'm also a volunteer on the steering group of the Ipswich Dementia Action Alliance. And that is just so rewarding. We've just found out we've got another £5,000 funding. And so we're going to use that for a new project, which will be amazing. It's just a shame with what's happening at the moment, because our action group was just getting ready to run Dementia Week, where we were going to have people living with dementia. We were going to give them a tea party at Ipswich Town. They were going to go to Felixstowe on the bus. There was going to be singing. We were going to get dancing organised. But this year, it's just a shame that it's not going to happen. But it won't stop us for next year.
It's going to be like even bigger, even better. 2021. That's what we're looking for.
2021.
Far away. Also, so obviously we're all working from home, or at least, you know, some folks are. How are you finding it to still sort of remain positive, to remain productive? Because there's going to be a lot of young people and students and just everybody who are struggling with monotony of just waking up, being in the same place, only getting outside for an hour. How are you remaining positive, and how are you remaining productive as well?
I suppose I've always been a positive person, but I was saying to my husband this morning over coffee, I just said, you know, we're in whatever situation you find yourself in, even when we're on holiday, Jordan, we have a normal, don't we? We have a day, even if it's getting up, having breakfast. And we were saying that our normal now is different to the normal that we knew. I mean, for instance, as I say, I usually had a full diary. So my husband would be at home, I'd be out at meetings, come back, have lunch, perhaps out in the afternoon, dinner. Whereas now it's so much more relaxed. And when I knew I'd got to dress up this morning and actually look presentable and dare I say, wash my hair. I mean, I do miss the hairdressers, I have to say. When I knew I'd got to do all that, it was like, I don't really want to do this. I've got in this kind of relaxed situation, which I'm quite enjoying, because life has slowed down, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think for students, it's different. It's very sad. They were going to take their exams, but life will get better. And I think the positive to come out of this is that families are spending much more time together. They're not in restaurants, all of them on their social media. They're playing games, they're having fun. I see them out walking together. Life is very, very different. And maybe some of the things that have happened during this lockdown, we should hang on to, because I think they're quite precious. The sky is much bluer. There's no aeroplanes. It's just a different way of living. And maybe we should, okay, we've got to get back to normal, to the normal, whether it will ever be the normal that we knew. But let's keep hold of the precious things that have happened to families and to all of us during this lockdown.
Yeah, I think you're spot on around that. I suppose sort of community cohesion that we are now feeling. You know, when I'm going out for a walk, you know, you just see so much more people. And you're right, you know, less traffic, less planes, less pollution, all of those sorts of things. So I think there are definitely some things to take away from this for the good, and then to be able to share. And I think it's good to see, you know, myself and the team who have created these virtual Q&As as a sort of an innovative way to make sure that students do have meaningful encounters with the world of work. So I think there are lots of takeaways from this. Before we start to wrap up, I do have a couple more questions. So there are going to be a lot of students who will now be they're going to be even more confused about what their future pathways are, and especially around what opportunities will lay ahead for them. What's your advice to those students who may be feeling a little bit directionless at the moment? That's totally understandable. You know, you'd be confused if you are 16, about to take the next leap into further education, or indeed 18, and then looking at perhaps career opportunities in university. What's your advice to them folks?
It's really difficult, isn't it? It's really difficult to say to those students, stay positive and things will get better. But if you think about Captain Tom, we all know Captain Tom, who did say tomorrow will be a good day and this won't last forever. And the students will get the opportunities to do what they would have done. It will just be different. I haven't got any advice really that is going to make things change. But you've just got to hang in there like we all are. And it is very difficult. I really feel for the primary students who are going to secondary school. That must be terrible for them to think they're going to make that big leap if they don't go back to school before September.
Yeah.
But
no.
If it has to be, then it has to be, because as our PM says, health is more important. And if I had to stay in longer so that none of my family were at risk of dying from this terrible disease, then so be it. We are in an unprecedented time, and with the economy as well, it's going to change. And maybe our normal won't be the same normal as it was, but we will develop another new normal because we have to.
Yeah. No, I think that's good advice, Jill. Okay, so you'll be pleased to know that's sort of like interrogation over. And thank you so much for coming on and supporting our second episode of Careers in Coffee. As I said, I think it's so important that we have just such a wide variety of people joining us for these calls, just to get an insight into how they're dealing with lockdown, giving some advice to students and young people around work readiness and how they can be as best prepared as possible for what the future pathways for them will become. So yeah, thank you so much for your time. I'm looking forward to actually catching up with you in person once this is all done.
Yeah,
and I hope
that would be great.
I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, I hope you have a lovely afternoon, a nice bank holiday weekend. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Jordan, and have a good day tomorrow, and I'll raise a glass to you.
And you. See you later.
Yeah, bye.
Right, folks, thank you so much for joining us. This will also be an opportunity to then watch this back and share with students and young people as well. That was Jill talking about work readiness, skills for young people, and an insight into her career. So thank you so much for watching. Next Tuesday, we have a fantastic guest. He's Mike Dorr. He used to be the ex-MD of City and Guilds International. Fantastic career. He does loads of amazing stuff at the moment. So I'm really, really looking forward to speaking to him next Tuesday, 12:30, same place. On the Thursday, can't remember the date for them, but we have Anthony West, who's a financial advisor. He also supports my work as being an enterprise advisor as well. So again, he'll be talking about the financial sector and how he got into his current role as well. So Tuesdays and Thursdays, 12:30 to 1. Tune in here on our New Anglia Local Enterprise Partnership page to learn about careers and the world of work. Thank you.